All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Thermal Gard Podcast. And per usual, we have another rock star guest on from the Lima area, another business owner. Welcome, Bubba from the Sidecar Lounge.
Thank you.
So, Bubba, I know we just talked about it a little bit, but where'd you grow up?
Grew up in Colorado. I grew up in Denver. I grew up in the north suburbs of Denver, left for a year to go to college, transferred back, ended up graduating from Colorado, and then I moved to Southern California, where I lived for maybe 12 years before I moved here, which was a shell shock.
Yeah. Where at in Southern California?
LA. I lived in Long Beach for the most of the part. But
Okay.
So you lived my dream life is what I'm hearing.
we need to talk about your dreams. Can you hypnotize her?
Oh, man.
We'll get to the bottom of everything.
You know, I've been to California quite a bit. My brother used to live there, and the weather, everything, it's beautiful. The weather, the scenery is beautiful, but cost of living, and it's a different part of the country, different culture for sure.
Do you know, I loved everything about it. And in retrospect, it was that chapter of my life made sense for that, because I didn't have kids. I was single. I was young. And it was also the poorest period of my life. And I don't remember not having money ever. But I moved, this is probably before you guys, but the Northridge earthquake, which happened in January of 1994. And if you just Google it, you'll see all these pictures of buckled parking garages and everything. That happened in January. I moved there in March. And I lived in Hollywood first, and I lived in these apartments in the Hollywood Hills that were owned by Warner Brothers Studios. Just by chance, I didn't seek it out. It was just a studio that I could afford, and it was behind gates, and they had, a car rental place if your car broke down and a dry cleaner if you needed one. And so my mom just felt like that was a safe place for me to be for a while. But on a parallel path, a lot of the celebrities whose houses were wrecked during the earthquake and had to have them repaired, if they were on contract with Warner Brothers, they moved them into this apartment complex. So I had these crazy, for a kid that was from Colorado, and I had like Lou Gossett Jr. lived on my floor, and Vanna White lived below me, and like Kreese, the bad coach from Karate Kid, he was my other neighbor. I got to barbecue with him. I'm like, what the LA's amazing. But it just was this weird happenstance when I actually lived there.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So walk us through, living in California, what was it like? You're out of college. What did you get into? What did you do for work?
Oh my God, this is a hilarious story. So again, this is going to show how old I am. But, when I was in high school, they're like, y'all got to learn how to use typewriters because that's what people do in college. Well, it turns out then they had word processors, which were these standalone boxes with disks and everything. Then they got computers later. So when I was graduating from college, and I was like, okay, I have to do a cover letter and a resume, which put nothing on because I have no skills because I just got out of college. And I'm like typing up this thing on this word processor that I never really used. And I sent all these cover letters out, and I knew I wanted to move to LA. And again, this is before the internet. So I was subscribing to the hard copy LA Times, and I'd get it like 3 days after it was issued and look through the classified and circle shit and then send off cover letters and resumes and snail mail. And I did the same thing in Denver where I lived. And, I double majored in social psych and criminology. So I wasn't really prepared to do anything except go back to school. And I got probably 8 or 10 hits in LA. I got 0 in Denver. None in my own hometown. So I was like, I'm going to move to California. I did not realize until probably 15 years later, because I keep everything, when I was going through boxes of my old cover letters, that when I was creating these cover letters and I was doing it on this word processor, and I was kind of just changing things for the right audience, I didn't change the right thing. So every cover letter I sent out in Denver said, I'll be relocating to the Los Angeles area in the next 3 weeks. So nobody ever responded to me. They're like, who's this idiot?
I'm looking for one paycheck.
Yeah. So I finally, and I'd never been to LA, which was also strange for me to pick that place. And so I scheduled, I got like 4 or 5 interviews. I got them scheduled over the same couple days. And then I went out there not realizing how vast Los Angeles County is. It's just gigantic, which is to say nothing of traffic and everything else. So I was late to everything. Absolutely late to everything, and the jobs that had given me an interview were all like entry level social service type jobs, because that's basically, I had a bachelor's of arts, and it's basically what I was built to do. So I remember my very last one was in Pasadena, and I didn't know where I was going. There's a big medical compound. There was a mental health agency somewhere in there. And so I'm sweating, I'm sure, and got parked in this garage trying to figure out where I'm going. And this guy in a suit looked at me. He's like, man, you're a mess. You look lost. I'm so lost. And he goes, well, where are you going? I showed him. He goes, that's where I'm going. And I said, oh, that's, can I go with you? He's like, absolutely. So we're walking, and he's like, where are you from? Denver? Yeah, he goes, I love Denver. I go, oh, great. So my heartbeat is going down a little bit, and so we get to the agency, and he checks in, and like mental health clinics are a little intimidating by nature. They have to deal with crises, so they have coated doors and one-way glass, and they're just kind of awkward on the natural. So this woman slides open the one-way glass, and I check in. She goes, okay, have a seat, and I sit down, and this guy sits down next to me, and then he looks at me, and he goes, so what exactly are your credentials? And I'm like, oh no, I have none. I just graduated. I was like, well, I graduated. He goes, yeah, I understand that. What are your credentials for working here? And so I'm trying to remember all these stupid books I read when I graduated. Like, I think that's a red flag question. I'm going to turn it into a green light answer. You're just like all this. So I'm sweating again. And this guy's grilling me. And I'm like, I thought we were friends. And this goes on for about 5 minutes till the window swings open, and the woman goes, Richard, the doctor's got your medication ready. You can go. And he stands up. He goes, Richard Gilbreth, I'm Charlie Chaplin's son. And I'm like, what just happened here? What just happened? So I went inside, and I sat down. It was a group interview, and I go, I have to just tell you what just happened. And I need some reference here. I need some leveling. And I told them, and they started laughing. They go, you met Richard Gilbreth. Yeah. He's one of our high-functioning schizophrenic patients. Yeah, that's one of his delusions, that Charlie Chaplin's his dad. And I was like, oh. So I knew right then I was going to work at this place. It was an outpatient clinic for high utilizers of mental health services. So mostly people who had been in the hospitals for a large part of their life, but they weren't violent. So we were a pilot program for outpatient mental health care in California, where we would take them out of the hospitals, put them into the community, and provide vocational services, medication services, skills training of all sorts, cheaper than it costs to keep them in the hospital. So it's cheaper on taxpayers. It was a better lifestyle for them. So that's kind of when I knew I wanted to be a social worker. But that was my first. Oh, and by the way, 3 weeks later, I know I'm just going to take this. I'm going to swerve out of my lane here. 3 weeks later, the bus driver came and said, "Hey, Richard, that guy wants me to drop him off to be with his mom. Is that okay with you?" And I go, "Well, he lives with his mom." He goes, "Yeah, I'm just saying. He just wants to meet his mom." I go, "Okay." I mean, he's a grown man. He lives with his mom. What I didn't know was that Richard said his mom was at the La Puente firing range, and he got dropped off there. He rented a .44 Magnum with his disabled bus pass and killed himself. Like 3 weeks after I started. And he was on my caseload too. It was one of mine. And that was the first time I realized like major mental illness is very lethal because people's reality is just elastic, And yeah, I called my mom that night and I said, I can't do this. I can't have people who just die like that. I was a mess. And I remember it was a Friday, and she kind of put me back together and they hang in there, whatever. She called me back on Sunday and she said, "Hey, listen, I know you're having a week, and I don't mean to make it worse, but that's what's going to happen right now. Your dad and I are getting divorced, selling the house." And I'm like, what? So like I was about a month into living in LA. I had no friends there, didn't really know the city. And I never again went back to the house that I grew up in. The next time I saw everything that was in my room was like boxed up in my grandma's garage. So I really had to dig roots in LA, and like, well, I guess I'm here now. So,
wow, there's a lot to go into there. So let's jump right into your parents giving you horrible news after a bad week. I mean, I honestly, I can't imagine after moving to a new place, having to adjust. How'd you get through that? And if there's anybody who can relate to that in any way, that in anything they're walking through right now, what would you tell them?
Okay, how did I get through that? I don't know. Like immersion therapy, where if you're afraid of spiders, they shove you into a room full of spiders and like, right, and see what happens. And if you're okay, then you're going to feel a little better the next time you see a spider. Yeah. You just have to live through it. And I was just lonely. And I think one of the things I did do was every 6 weeks at that clinic where I worked, you needed to go on 24-hour crisis watch. So if somebody was suicidal or if there was some other issue, I would accompany whoever a licensed professional was, because I wasn't, out on these calls. And I want to do it because you made $35 every time you were on. I was so broke every time you were on call. So I would take everybody's shift. So like for 2 months, I was just constantly on call and going out on these crazy crisis calls. And I think that kept my mind off a lot of it. But it also, at the same time, when you're immersed in all those patients' realities, it just gives you so much humanity. We're so ridiculous with what we consider a bad day. When you have a lot of people, if they just wake up and can comb their hair and know where they are, it's a good day. It's a good day. So I really credit that whole job with like the bedrock of my character on just how you treat people and what it means to be a good human. It was a fantastic time in my life to be in a job like that, in a place where I had no distractions. I didn't have none of my friends. I had no family there or anything. It's great.
Yeah.
And I literally on weekends would drive a 12-passenger van of schizophrenics to the dollar movies if they were good that week, or to the beach.
I'm sure that was such an eye-opener too, like going from Denver to LA to a whole new type of lifestyle, seeing how different people react, especially in where they live.
Yeah.
And just kind of being like, this is it. This is your reality right now.
Do you know the actress Christy Swanson?
Yes.
You do? Okay. So this will be more meaningful for you. So I took these patients to a baseball game, a Dodgers game, because we had like a token economy, and if they did all their things, then they could go on an excursion. And so we did this, and the way we got the tickets was the Dodgers would make available like corporate sections for nonprofits and whatnot, and so you'd be around other group ticket sales too, and we happened to be sitting next to, like, it was a William Morris agency, or like one of the talent agencies that was courting all these young kids from across the country to come and sign up with them, because everybody wants to move to LA and be famous. And they would bring some of their famous people to go and sit there. So they'd be, oh my God, at the baseball game with whoever. So I ended up sitting next to Christy Swanson, who I knew exactly who she was, but I'm like, oh my God. And I'm like, I got to shoot my shot. I have to ask her out. How do you do that? Well, the first thing I would do is act like I don't know who she is, right? She probably gets that all the time. So I'm sitting there, and we're just watching this game, and for a minute, I forgot that I have like 15 schizophrenics with me. And the way we teach them to like manage delusions or manage hallucinations is to reality test them. So I'd be sitting there, and this guy would come over, and he'd be like, hey, Bubba, did you just hear from the loudspeakers God told me to go kill myself? And I'd say, I didn't, Jesse, but that's the right thing to do. It's just the announcer, and he didn't say your name at all. He goes, are you sure? I go, yeah. You should ask, though, if you heard it. And he goes, okay, thank you. He'd walk off, and I could kind of sense next to me, Christy Swanson's like, what the fuck just happened here? And then a few minutes later, come back in. Hey, Bubba, do you think I'm going to go to hell? I swear I just heard that. I swear I heard Jesus tell me I'm going to hell. I'm like, nope. We're in the 6th inning, and it's the top, and I think everything's fine. Okay, it's great reality testing, Jesse. Keep asking. Okay, thank you. Go back. Finally, I just had to let her in on it because I could tell she was kind of moving. I'm like, hey, these are patients, and I'm a social worker, and blah, blah, blah. And we started laughing. I'm like, oh my God, this is my shot. And so I was like, what do you do? And exactly, she goes, oh, I'm an actress. I'm like, oh, anything I've ever seen before? And she's like rattling off the movies she's done. I'm like, oh, never heard of you. And so in the end, I'm like, hey, you want to hang out sometime? And she's like, and I could tell the minute she said that, it's an absolute categorical no. She's like, well, I'm going to be going overseas for a few months, but maybe if you give me your number and I can call you when I get back.
She never called you, did she, Bubba?
I didn't think it was me that was going to cry in this podcast. I thought I was going to make you. No, she never called. Never called.
That's amazing. I love that story. That's an amazing story.
Forgot about that till just now.
That's awesome. So I know right now, I know a lot of friends personally who are, they got out of college, they moved across the country or maybe to a town they know nobody. Can you give some advice on young professionals who are trying to build their network, get new friends? Is there any tips or tricks that you can give to those people?
It's a good question, because at the same time that I moved, other people did too, and some to the West Coast, some to other places. And what I found was it took, and I even mentally had to, this is ridiculous to say out loud. At the very end, when I got offered the job, I was like, no, when it became real to actually move. So I'm in Denver. I actually got a job offer from the place I wanted. And I was like, absolutely not. And my best friend took me to lunch. He's like, you got to go. You got to go. And I go, no, I don't have to go. Why do I have to go? I have to go anywhere. He goes, you got to go because you're just afraid not to. That's it. And I don't want you to go. But nothing's going to change here, and you can always come back. You got to go. And I was like, oh, because he was right. But I convinced myself that I'm only going to go for a month. This makes no sense. I signed a lease, but I really believed, I'm just going to do this for a month and see how it works out. And of course, you get there for a month, and a month is nothing. And then it's 3 months. I'm like, 6 months, I'm going to check. And then by 6 months, you've actually met a couple people, whether it was just because you lived in an apartment complex and there were people at the pool, or you meet people through work, obviously. And once you get out of college, and it's not like bars all the time, work is the main place that people meet other folks. But I think I would just distill that all down to just stick with it. I think 1 year is the earliest anybody should decide if they should go back and rethink their path, because it's just, you get overwhelmed, and it's just something you got to go through.
Yeah.
There's not built for everyone. I have 2 daughters now, 19 and 20, and I'm like, go. And I think they will.
It's amazing. So I think we got to hear some more stories from this job, because I come from a similar background, and I mean, you get stories.
Wait, what do you mean?
Every single
What's your
day.
similar background?
I used to work with mental health clients.
Come on.
Yeah, in a different setting. So I did that for three and a half years. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. So I can relate.
I actually did research on you. I just made everything up that I just said because of that.
Oh, I doubt that. I was going to say, you won't find that anywhere.
Why, was it community service? Were you court mandated to do it?
No, I was not. No, I got paid to do it. So,
what setting was it?
Correctional setting.
Ah,
Yep. So I worked in a prison on the mental health block.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that's real.
Oh yeah.
I did. I ended up going to graduate school at Cal State and got my master's in clinical social work. I worked in chronic mental health. I also worked in domestic violence. That's probably the hardest job I ever had, because it was in East LA. White guy, not married, younger than everybody else, in a position of authority. And everybody there was court mandated. They were either had to come to my groups because they were trying to avoid going to jail, or they were getting out of corrections, and it was part of their reintegration back to their houses. They had to go. Either way, it was the hardest job in the world. But I worked a little bit in group homes too. I mean, I know we're talking a lot about social work, but the last 30 years I've been in politics, which is the majority of my professional stuff. And I think they're related. I think politics is macro social work.
Yeah. So what'd you do after that social working job? How'd you get into politics?
They're related. I was working on group homes, and there was this weird point in time in I'll have to look it up, but probably the mid-'90s, where there were all these urban casinos sprouting up in California. And the state, they didn't have a gaming commission. There was no regulation at all. And the state was like, hang on, we got to get some rules together here. So we're going to do a 3-year moratorium on any new casinos in the state starting January 1, which was about 6 months out. So for 6 months, you had all these local municipalities trying to vote in or out casinos. And one of them was an area where I worked as a social worker. It's this little 1 square mile town in South Central LA called Hawaiian Gardens, which makes it sound so amazing and elegant, and it is terrible. Very poor. And the casino that was being proposed was awful. It was right next to these elementary schools. They had all these provisions, and so their liquor hours could be later. They wanted to have a part of it with dancers and strippers, and I mean, it was nuts. And so there was a community group that's coming together to oppose this thing, and I happened to be in the right place to get a job on this campaign to work against it, and we lost, by the way. It stands there today off the 605 freeway, but it was. So it was kind of a transition into that was my very first campaign. And it was also now that I think about it, my very first lesson in how dirty politics can be sometimes, because there were two sides that were very divided. And one was like, we need the revenue and Hawaiian Gardens, such support, good jobs, everybody. And the other one was like, this is awful. This is right next to the schools, and there's no rules. They can do whatever they want. It's owned by out-of-state interests. And so it was very divisive. The very first day I was there, I had a gun pulled on me. And so it was maybe a 3-month campaign, and we lost. In fact, we lost, and they lost all the trucks. It was a 1 square mile city. It's not even that big. They lost the trucks that were carrying the ballots to the city clerk. They had to call out the U.S. Marshals to find these trucks, and they didn't get there till like 4 a.m. The polls closed like 7 p.m. It was crazy. Everything about it was crazy. But the night we lost, and we knew we were going to lose, this guy who'd been hanging around the campaign said, "Man, you guys have been working hard. Let me take you to dinner." I'm 20, whatever I was, and I'm like, free dinners? Yes, please. And so we all piled into a convoy, and he was going to take us to a nice dinner, and we drove until we get to the bicycle club, which is a casino right outside of downtown LA. And we go inside and I'm like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, casinos are bad for the last 3 months. And we sit at this table that's kind of elevated above the gaming floor, and they've got prime rib, and it's this amazing feast. And I'm like, what am I missing here? And so I have a few beers, and I ask this guy, I'm like, what are we doing here? I don't get it. Why are we here? He goes, oh, we funded your campaign. Which, I didn't know who funded our campaign. I wasn't at that level. I go, what? He goes, oh yeah, we don't need that kind of competition this close. So that was my first lesson. I'm like, ugh.
Makes sense. Can we go back to the story of you getting a gun pulled on you the first time?
Yeah. It's not even that interesting. It was just scary.
Let's hear it.
No, so, back then, this matters less now because this isn't the way people politic. But back then, like, just shoe leather retail politics, knocking on doors, talking to people about issues, putting people in the community, next to people in the community was how you did, especially in a small town. You could talk to everybody in this little town. But it's a very, very poor, gang-riddled town. Hawaiian Gardens, it wasn't. I have to assume it still is now. And it was the very first. I'd been going over my script about, I don't remember what the measure was. Let's say it was Measure C, Measure Casino. Why I would explain it was bad, what I would ask for this. Guy just opens it up, puts a gun to my chest. He's like, what the fuck are you doing on my porch? First one.
How'd you react, Bubba?
I was
Stone
like,
cold? Or?
Yeah. I knocked it out of his hand. I put him in a headlock. And I was like, let that be a lesson to you. No, I just froze. I just froze. I was like, I just want to talk to you about the casino. I don't care about any casino. I'm like, noted. Yeah,
that's
it was
awesome.
Rattling. Yeah.
All right. So after the guy tells you, they're from the other casino, they funded you guys. Yeah. What did you take away from that?
I just thought about it nothing really. I mean, I was young. I was like, what? That makes no sense. I think I could make a lot more sense out of it today than I could back then. And really, it was probably equal parts that I cared about that thing not being there, and that's what drew me to that. And me being broke, I needed to work too. So I ended up, and I was good at it. I ended up getting hired in fact, over the next 6 months, I worked for some casinos and against some casinos, depending on where they were, oddly enough.
So how many different campaigns were you on then?
Oh, I've done hundreds of my life. I don't know how many were that year.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a bunch. And then after that was over, then I transitioned into tax measures. And I did school bonds for probably 3 years and just, try and pass local property taxes to fund infrastructure developments on schools in LA for the most part and all over. And then I didn't get into candidate stuff until maybe 3 or 4 years after that.
Okay.
And how did that begin?
So I had, a good question. My first one, I remember actually, I had a bad breakup. And it probably should have ended way sooner than it did, but it didn't. And it was the end of some campaign I was working on. So I had this great arrangement when I lived in Southern California. So I'd moved to Long Beach. I lived like in Belmont Shore, like right by the beach. It's ridiculous. I found this little 2-bedroom house that cost me $700 a month. And I knew what the guys over here paid. They paid like $3,000 a month. And I knew what these guys paid. But I just had this old landlord in the Bay Area, it was way up north, who had no frame of reference for rent. And it was just lucky. He even called me one year. He's like, I'm going to have to raise your rent. I said, oh, no. Okay. What are you thinking? He goes, can you do $750? And I was like, can I call you back? He goes, yeah, absolutely. I called back. I'm like, I think I can make it work. But because I didn't have that, I wasn't married, didn't have a whole bunch of overhead, I would work for 3 months on a campaign. I'll take 3 months off. And I knew where my favorite dollar taco place was and dollar beer happy hour. And it was fantastic. But I had this big breakup and I got offered this job. I got offered 3 jobs. And if memory serves, one of them was working on the governor's race in California. The other one was a same-sex marriage initiative in Hawaii. And the other one was this special congressional election in Albuquerque. And I had never been to New Mexico. And because I was like just nursing this breakup, all I could picture, which is ridiculous again, was like just me sitting Indian style in some mesa getting my together out in the middle of the Southwest. So I'm like, well, I'll take New Mexico. And so that was my first candidate, one in Albuquerque. And it was not like reality. The guy was a billionaire. I have to think if I want to like say names. And then they had this one idiot son who they didn't know what to do with. And so what else do you do with an idiot? Running for Congress, right? And he was my age. And he was the worst. He was the worst. But we had an unlimited budget. So how could you possibly lose? You lose if your guy's an idiot, no matter what. It turns out. But it was unlike any other campaign I'd ever worked on, where you were really, really tethered to a sharp budget. They were like, "No, we have all the money in the world, so you better win." And he didn't win. And there's so many stories on that campaign. But in the very end, the family turned on us, like on their own people, and we had a meeting where our de facto leader was like, "Listen, everybody needs to get a plane ride out of this town to a different place by tomorrow." They were already going through our computers. We found it was an insane campaign. But that was my first candidate one. But we did run a really good program, and then I got recruited by the then Attorney General to run his congressional campaign in the North in Santa Fe. So I just ended up living in New Mexico for a year, and I loved it more than anything. So I did that, and that was kind of my foray into like national politics then. Because if all the people go into politics, like all the kids that like want to be political science majors, or nobody wants to do they think they want to do campaigns. Everybody gets on a campaign, and you realize this is real work. This is real work, and it's every day, and it's sweaty, and not a lot of people. They want to wear suits and like tell their parents they're okay, and go blow the anthrax out of mail before you hand it over to your congressman or whatever. Nobody wants to do campaigns, so it's a very small group of us who do consistently, especially in the national landscape. And so we stuck together for the next 3 or 4 years, would do all the targeted national races and move around. And then I came back to New Mexico in 2000 and ran Gore's campaign. And then candidates are a lot. They're a lot. And I think if you're going to run for office, you have to have somewhat of an ego for sure. Hopefully you're smart. Some aren't. But if you could do campaigns without dealing with candidates, it'd be way better. And as luck would have it, in 2003, major campaign finance reform made a big shift, and it shifted many times since then. But what it functionally did was cut off large member and issue-based organizations. So think on the right, think the NRA. On the left, think Planned Parenthood, like groups that aren't necessarily political entities in and of themselves, but they sure care about who's elected for their organizations and issues. So when the law changed, it cut off those organizations' ability to just give big chunks of money to the committees, the national committees, or the candidates themselves. So they were kind of on their own. So on the left, if the environmental groups, the choice groups, the civil rights groups, and whoever were all that didn't usually run campaign programs, they would just give money. They had to figure out what they were going to do. They weren't allowed to do it anymore. So when I heard that, I was like, wait a minute. There's a way to exist in this world, and it's illegal for candidates to talk to me. This sounds amazing. How do we do this? So we started this thing that would basically coordinate all the work that those guys would do together, so that they could function as a coalition without running each other over, and their money could be leveraged. So what that would look like for you is if I had 75 national groups who all cared about the same presidential candidate, I would make sure they weren't all sending you mail on the Friday before the election day, because you're just going to throw that shit away and not read it. I'd make sure they weren't bidding up media points against each other. They could actually do it together. Or if they wanted to do research in a state, you wouldn't have two people hiring the same pollster to do different survey research when they could just work together and each pay half of it. So it's just about finding efficiencies in that. And it was, I remember when we couldn't see payroll after. It was interesting because in 2004, it was kind of the big bang year for soft money. So rich people could go just do whatever they wanted that year and still can. And you had a lot of organizations that were built that year, but they lived their entire lifespan until John Kerry lost. I'm talking about on the left generally. And then we weren't run because we were a cheap date, and all we were about was making sure other people were doing a good job. So they were all like, let's keep this thing going. So we actually grew. And I remember somebody saying like, what can you do in 2005? I'm like, 2005 not election year. So we had some experimental years, but I remember we couldn't see payroll for more than, I think, 3 weeks or 4 weeks in advance. And then, I left there, I think 5 years ago in 2020, I think they raised $750 million maybe. So it really was a good proof of concept that like coordinating this work is good for donors. It's good for voters to be able to make sense out of things. Yeah.
Gotcha. So I want to make sure I'm understanding. So your organization would get money and different things from other businesses, nonprofits, or other special interest groups, right? And then you guys would coordinate where those funds go? Or?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, rich people in big organizations, either issue-based or member-based. So like the teachers union, for example, could be one, the OEA. And we did that nationally and in states.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would send it to the candidate or to the PAC or...
We would could be. We're not candidates. We were completely walled off from candidates.
Not candidates, yeah.
And parties. No parties, no candidates.
Just their PACs
fantastic.
or their,
Yeah.
wherever they get money from.
Yeah, and so I'll tell you, it's funny because that same period of time. All right, let me back up. So I'm hopping around LA and other places. I ended up getting probably my favorite job was flying around and helping campaigns for like the party committees, where they had like 3 weeks left until election day, but the unions hated the candidate and the party thought they were all crazy and they didn't want to put money in because what are we going to do? And I'd get dropped in someplace for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Okay, how'd you get that job?
From working in national politics and just being generally a responsible adult in the room.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, continue.
Yeah. There's a lot on that one too. Yeah, in 2002, I had apartments in Portland, Santa Fe, San Francisco. I lived in LA, South Bend, and Salt Lake City because they were just all these problem children campaigns. But anyway, so that's happening. Well, my now wife, who's from Michigan, had a best friend that moved to Southern California too. And I had some friends that moved to Southern California too. And somehow one of her friends knew one of my friends, and she and I ended up meeting on her 25th birthday. So that was 1996. It just dated my wife. And me, I guess. She'll be super happy about that. And we didn't date till 2001. She was 30, but she had been recruited to come to Lima she's a physician, and she went to med school at Wayne State in Detroit. And it was one of those deals where Memorial brought her here and helped set up her practice, and they do it a lot. But I lived in LA. So for 2 years, she would come out and meet me. And it was those years where I had apartments. Let's meet in San Francisco this weekend. Oh, it was amazing. It's super fun. And I'd never been here. I didn't know anything. And I mostly worked out of DC, from Denver, lived in LA, went to the other cities. I didn't really have a good frame of reference for the Midwest at all. And then we get engaged. I come to Lima, and I'm like, what is going on in this town? The first place, do you guys remember the Crab Shack? It's where Rhodes is now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first place I went. I was like, whoa, this is nuts. So, but I was into her. And so we decided, because it didn't really matter where I lived anymore for work, that I would move here. And she'd committed to 2 years in Lima. So I said, I'm not moving to this town without an exit plan, period. So I printed out 2 50-state maps. I gave her one, and I had one. And we each got 3 highlighters, a pink, a green, and a yellow. And I'm like, you have to fill out every state, every one. And red is I would never live there. Yellow is, maybe, and green is I'd live there right now, and separate. So we had to fill it out. And this was my exit plan. This is the only way I would move here for 2 years, is if I knew where I was going afterwards. So we get back together, and we each had all reds, no yellows, and 3 greens. And mine went LA, Denver, Chicago. Hers went Chicago, Denver, LA. So we decided Denver, and that's where I'm from, and a family there. And I was like, perfect. Well, then we got married. We had kid 1, and we had kid 2, and life just gets complicated. And, so we're supposed to be here for 2 years, 22 years ago. And now he's never left. And it was, but the timeline on me moving here was interesting because I was like, what am I going to do for work if I'm taking myself out of my current, what I currently did? And it was right. It coincided with what I was saying about campaign finance shifting and different things forming. And I got a call from this. I actually moved out and worked for the mayor of Fort Wayne for his reelect. And then I got a call, and this woman said, are you moving to Ohio? I go, yeah. And she's like, well, we're putting together this thing, and it can't talk to candidates, and we're going to spend special interest money. I go, I'm in. And she goes, well, can you come and interview maybe? So I flew to DC, and remember, I lived on the beach for a while, and I looked like it. My hair was bleached out. It was longer, and never been to DC. I'm sure I dressed okay. I hope I did. And so I'm in this interview, and I could tell she was real tentative with me. And I couldn't figure out why. Like, I'd done a bunch of big stuff. And finally, it was me that she was actually tentative with. It wasn't like my history, my work or anything. She goes, do you think you can make yourself look like you? She wanted to hire me to be the state director in Ohio. Do you think you could make yourself look like you're from Ohio? Like, I don't know. I've never been there. I can try. And so when I took that job, I went back to LA, packed up my dog car, drove across country, came to Lima, spent one night, drove to Piqua. There was Supercuts in this strip mall, got the worst haircut I've ever. I literally sat down and I go, can you make me look like I'm from here and always have been? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, just give me an Ohio haircut. I don't even know what I mean. Got the worst haircut in the world. Drove to Columbus, picked up the woman who interviewed me at the airport, and went to the first meeting. And I remember when she got in the car, she just looked at my head. She goes, wow.
You did it.
I did. Yeah, you sure did. You sure did.
Commitment right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was, when did you say?
That was 04.
04?
Early 04, and I did that job for 5 years, and I took on the national role as the national political director for the next 10.
Okay, so let's talk about that 5-year stint.
Yeah.
What was mainly what you did?
I would go around to organizations in Ohio that were affiliates of national groups. Ohio has some specific Ohio-based groups too. And it was rough. It was I was under the impression that this big idea had been shared with everyone. It was shared with no one. So I was literally just showing up at with these and having meetings with these leaders. And it turns out a lot of them hate each other. A lot of them, have their own opinions on politics. Ohio at that time was a bellwether state, and people weren't particularly friendly to folks from out of state, which I understand. But I finally remember, and I had this star chamber that I wanted to create. There were only people that had any money in state. The rest of it would come from out of state. And I remember saying, I don't care if you fuckers hate each other forever. You hate each other before I got here, probably go on after I'm gone. But can we all agree that spending stupid money doesn't make sense? And if you can just trust me to be the go-between, and if you be honest with me what you guys want to do, what you need to do with your members, whatever, I can put together a matrix of who's doing what, when, and how, and we can make sure that your money goes further, and that's smarter. And out of state, people will say, these guys know what they're doing, and they'll put more money into Ohio. And they're like, okay. So, yeah, that was, the next 4 or 5 years I did that, and then I just moved nationally.
Your old window cleaner is trash. Ditch it and get Dudley on duty. It's what the pros use.
Gotcha. All right, so move us into the national then.
Yeah, same thing, but across the country, and probably politics is so exhausting. Which is part of the reason I'm not in it now. So I would be in charge of all these different states, and then of course not every targeted election happens in a state where you have people. So if there were congressional races in certain places, or there were huge battles for state legislature controls or ballot initiatives that really mattered a lot, we would figure out ways to invest in those things too. And it was a very simple message, which is why I think we always worked really well. And it was like, let's make sure that we can maximize impact and be as efficient as possible. So, we would work on behalf of a lot of big donors who would want to put money into things, but they don't know about politics. They don't know. And the people who spend their money are going to tell them that they know everything. They know exactly what they're doing and everything. So having a trusted source that isn't benefiting directly from any of those investments, but it's just kind of the green light is, it was helpful for them.
Gotcha. So what did it look like on a national scale? I mean, are you traveling all the time?
Constantly. Yeah. So just to give you some perspective on that, in 2019, so pre-COVID, I flew 90 plus times, 90. And it's mostly from Dayton to DC, mostly, because I had other folks. But and it's not even that bad. I like DC and everything, but it's waking up at 4 to, I live out by the reservoir. It takes me an hour to get to the Dayton airport. Then you need an hour to get through security and whatever. And then you get on the hour flight to land in DC to get your car or take the metro, whatever, to get to where you need to go to walk 3 blocks to get in the office by 8. And then do that again on the other end. And it'll kill you, especially we had young kids. And I didn't realize how run down I was until I stopped doing it. COVID was awful for a million reasons. I know I lost friends. I know people who were single and were lonely forever. People who were packed together in an apartment. They all had to work from home. They couldn't leave. There's a million bad things. For me, it was a hack in the universe. It was, aside from people giving you more personal space and just generally not being dirty animals anymore, which was good on the natural. It also, the world made it okay to not have to travel all the time. And we figured out how to use Zoom and video conference and everything. And the expectations changed permanently, I think. So my wife and I always thought it was good for me to travel because I was always down on Lima because there's nothing to do here and it's boring. I'm not from here. I'm a big city guy. And I would see my friends there. And turns out we were completely wrong. Our relationship is so much better with me not traveling and me being here. Yeah. But it was a ton of travel and a ton of wrangling personalities and people. And
yeah. What's the most favorite place you've ever been traveling all over?
For work?
Work or pleasure, anywhere you've ever been your whole life.
Oh, that one's easy. Great Exuma. Did you ever watch the Firefest documentaries?
No.
Yes.
That place.
You went there?
Yeah, you go there. The bottom chain of islands in the Bahamas.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so my kids. This was post COVID. I think they're like, guys, we just got to go do something. Just figure out where we're going for. I don't remember if it was spring break or what it was for. And they came back with this like insane plan to go to the Great Barrier Reef or somewhere. Like, guys, we can't just go in Australia. Like, come on. I should have given you guardrails. Let me give you some now. But they came back there. We have a presentation for you. I'm like, oh, do tell. And so they put up a little laptop screen, and all of a sudden there's this amazing electric blue water, and then pigs start swimming across it. I'm like, what are we watching? I'm not familiar with this. But it ended up being there. I was like, let's go there. And it's the most beautiful place I've ever been, but it was also the best timing ever for my family because my kids were old enough to understand it, and they were fun, and they could go diving, and none of us had been. Our best trips are when none of us have been somewhere. Mm-hmm. We have to experience it together. Yeah, that would be it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When the course, obviously you've been in politics, you've been at this point in politics for decades. When did you start to think, okay, what's the next chapter? What am I going to do after this? When did you start feeling like I need to do something else?
Okay, buckle up. Mm-hmm. Buckle up. I'm going to bring this back. Go back to probably it was either 2000 or 2002, and I was managing a couple campaigns in LA. One of them was in Pasadena, and I needed to talk to the campaign manager there that was on site. So I drove into the parking lot right as this 16-year-old kid drives in a BMW. And I go inside, and this kid goes inside too. And I'm talking to the manager, and this kid comes up and just interrupts me. And I was like, hang on, Silver Spoon. I need him for 2 minutes, and then you can have him back, and I'll be on my way. And so I talked to him, then I leave, and I go out, and this kid's waiting for me in the parking lot. And he's like, sir, can I talk to you for a second? And I said, yeah, what's up? And he points at his BMW. He goes, that car's a piece of shit. And it was my uncle's, and I delivered papers for 8 years to be able to afford any car. And my mom's a nurse. I've never met my dad. My mom's a nurse. She works double shifts. I never see her. So you can go f*** yourself with that Silver Spoon comment. And I was like, what's your name? I love this kid immediately. And so I talked to him, and I was like, I apologize, blah, 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 blah. So I ended up hiring he's in high school, he's 16. I would hire him on campaigns, like during his Christmas break or summer or whatever. He's very smart. I mean, he's a 16-year-old that volunteered on campaigns at that point. How many of those are there? And then when he graduated, he was going to go to UNLV, and he's up there for a year, and he calls, he goes, hey, I need to talk to you. What's up? Well, I want to run for student class president. Will you help me? And I go, why do you want to do that? He goes, I just think it'd be cool. I go, no, I won't help you. He goes, why? I go, because that's the dumbest reason to run for anything. Do you think it'd be cool? No, veto. And so he got pissed, and he called me the next day, and he goes, look, I pay $700 a semester on student fees, and they put it into skate ramps that nobody uses and concerts nobody goes to, blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, I get it. But don't you have to be an upperclassman to do that? No, there's no rule. Okay, but listen, you're going to have to be the guy that, like the little entitled punk that says, these guys are doing it wrong. I can do it better. That's the role if you're going to challenge these guys. I don't care. And I go, all right, send me the rules. Send me the rules. Turns out there weren't many, and we ended up winning by a landslide. So he became the student body president at UNLV, and he made it very political and very functional and great. So he graduates from UNLV, and he calls me one day, and he goes, listen, I got to talk to you, and I don't want you to talk until I'm done. Seriously, I want you to listen. Okay, go. Okay, nothing. Got you. There's this open Senate seat in Nevada. Absolutely not. No, he's like, you just hear me out. I'm like, I will not hear you out. I will not hear you out. You haven't done shit in your life. Go out, graduate, go have a job. Then you can have a job like writing policy for the rest of us. Absolutely not. No, don't ask me again. Super pissed. So he decides he's going to go to law school. And he ends up getting into Ohio State. And so we have a house down in the short north. And I was like, you can live there while you're in law school. So, I mean, back to him being a 16-year-old that volunteered on campaigns, he's always been very, very ambitious, right? So he started day trading, and he was in law school, and he would have ideas. And I remember one day he's like, you know what, I've got this business idea. I'm like, I got an idea. Why don't you just graduate from law school and be a lawyer? That's my idea. Pay off your debt. It's a good idea. Stop being a good idea fairy. Just land and be a lawyer. And he's like, no, think about it. He goes, if you're a pen salesman, like, who do you sell pens to? You know, people who write? It's genius. He goes, no, you don't want to sell to people who write. You want to sell it to that Marriott hotel because they put a pen in every single room and they'll buy a bunch of them from you. And I go, okay, sell them to the Marriott. He goes, no, you don't want to sell them to that Marriott. You want to sell them to every Marriott on earth. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, who buys pens at Marriott? And I go, I don't know. He goes, I don't either. Somebody wants that information. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm overwhelmed with you right now. Give me some space. So long story short, he graduates from there. He starts his business. I don't pay much attention to it. Calls me over the years. He's like, hey, I need help. This thing's getting big. I'm like, I don't know anything about what you're doing. Like, and I'm in my national role. I'm doing other things. Come 2016, I'm like the rest of the world, beginning to get completely exhausted by Donald Trump, and I have to deal with it on a professional basis everywhere, every day. And we get going, and it's oh my God, I have another one in 2020. So 2019, over New Year's, I'm like, I don't think I can do another presidential cycle. Like, I am beat down. And this was even pre-COVID, and COVID made it even worse, right? So I called him up on New Year's Day. I'm like, hey, you still want to talk about this deal? I don't even know what you want. And he goes, yeah. I go, all right, I'll be there tomorrow. So I flew up. He was in Vancouver at the time. I flew up there. He's like, I want you to go to a sales meeting with me. A sales meeting? So we go. And the company had grown, so you couldn't have a meeting in the office. There's too many people. 600 people to have to meet in a theater in downtown Vancouver. And so he has this big meeting, and he's like, so you want to come work for me? I'm like, absolutely not. I don't even know what you do. And this isn't what I do. You know, so sidebar, if you take politics and divide it in half of it is campaigns and elections. The other half is like, you got elected, now you have to pass policy. These two worlds are not related at all. People think they're not at all. So I had always worked in campaigns and elections. He needed somebody to look out for like the government affairs and regulatory stuff for his company. I'm like, not my wheelhouse. And so we had this argument, and he's like, and mind, just 'cause 12 years younger than me. And he's like, do you think I'm smart? And I was like, yeah, I know you're smart. I know you're smart. He said, I've already done this calculation, and you can be successful here. And it doesn't help me to have people here who can't be successful. And I don't need you to be a lawyer. I've got an army of them. I don't need you to be a software writer. I got a bigger army of those. I need people around me who can solve problems. And that's what you've always done, that I trust. And that's that. So this is you against you. And I said, all right, I'm in. And so
he sold you right then and there.
He sold me then. And, you know, so I came on in January. I came on as our government affairs person, the only one, because it's a new company. And I think, memory serves, I think we had 300 employees then. We have 4,000 now. And we, you know, January 2020, and then we IPO'd 7 months later, and then have just grown iteratively a lot. So it's now, I now have a big team. I'm in policy now. And it turns out the worst kept secret is this jobs are so much easier than the other ones, you know. I thought because it's a corporate pace, and it is, we go 50 million miles an hour. It's nothing compared to what, you know, the campaign world. But it's great. I love it. And so we've got a big team. So that was my transition from, it's still in politics, but it's a different window on the same building I get. And so I oversee all of our state, federal, and international legislative and regulatory stuff. So anything related to artificial intelligence, data privacy, data brokering, anything that might intersect with our business model.
Okay, gotcha. And what is the business?
So we're a business intelligence platform. So all of our customers are companies that sell to other companies. So we don't sell directly to consumers.
Okay.
So it's our platform has things like firmographics, so things about companies, their annual income, things about the professionals within them. So it's really tough because the business to business market is invisible. Nobody can really relate with it because we all are consumers before we're anything else. And but if you have a business that say you make corporate training videos for airlines, something that's like really niche, like you don't go to the Lima Mall and rent out space and hope United Airlines stops by and hires you. Right. If you sell HR software for companies that have 50,000 or more employees, you don't do it on Amazon Prime. So there's just a type of intelligence you need. You need to know who at United Airlines takes safety bids and builds their collateral, and when do they do it, and how do you get in touch with them? So it's things like that. So it's an aggregation of intelligence about people, intelligence about companies, about the markets that gets distilled down to a company that sells windows. So say there's say Thermal Gard found out, or you'd want to know if some major company, if Walmart is going to relocate 1,000 employees to the greater Lima area, and they're going to build housing for them. You want in on that, right? So you're going to want to know that's happening. So it's things like that.
That is awesome.
Oh, is it?
I think it's, yeah.
I think it's fascinating.
Mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating as well. So what got you into business in Lima, opening up the Sidecar?
Yeah, that was not on my
Getting
business,
Sidecar.
on my bingo card at all.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know where I made most of my friends in Lima? I made most of them. Well, let me back up. I had a really hard time acclimating here for obvious reasons. I think I understand this town if you're from here or you have family here. We had neither. So we just kind of dropped in here for my wife's work, and, it was supposed to be a short-term thing. It wasn't. And I was admittedly bitter. I will tell you a funny story. I was admittedly bitter for a while. And I finally got over it, and I love it here now. I would never leave. But I wasn't like that for a long time. And my wife and I, when we had kids, and she's a full-time job, so do I, and kids are hard, and blah blah blah. And 2009 was like a particularly bad year for us. I was like peak negativity about everything. We lost a baby at 5 months. My daughter fell down the stairs and broke her arm. My other one had another major medical issue. It was just a bad year. And like my wife and I, the way we like cope, like she goes like this and I go like this. Like I want to talk about everything and she wants to talk about not a goddamn thing. And so there's a lot of like, we have to figure out how to deal with that. And so we, as a social worker, like I feel like I need to walk the walk. And so we got into counseling, which we still go, by the way. It's fantastic. Best thing in the world. I recommend it for everybody. But we needed to figure out how to find each other in this kind of dark period of our lives. And so during that, living in Lima was a big point of contention with me. So we would have these sessions with our therapist where either it would be both of us or would have our individual ones, and then would reconvene at some point. So on my path, I was saying, I think I'm being a selfish asshole. I think things are good here. This is good for our kids. There's no traffic. My wife's business is here. It's cheap. We can always get out of town. I think I'm being selfish. On her path, she was saying, he's totally right. This was a bait and switch. I changed the game on him, And so neither of us knew we were kind of changing positions here. And so then we finally reconvened for our next joint session. And I could tell our therapist was a little giddy. Like, I didn't know what was going on. I walked in. She's like, so how is everybody? You guys excited? Who's excited walking into their therapist besides nobody on earth? And so we walk in. She said, well, who wants to start? And we kind of looked at each other. And I shrugged. I go, I'll start. I go, I think we just need to stay here. And she looks at me. She goes, what? And she burst into tears. She goes, I think we're going to get the out of here. I go, what? And then we ended up staying. We figured out, and we moved out to the country. That's where we live now, and I love it. Would never move away. I just totally derailed myself. What was I talking about before that?
Sidecar.
Yeah, Sidecar. Thanks. And so where I met, when I finally decided that it was worth me meeting friends, because I am the social arm of our relationship here, I met all the friends, or they started at the old Vino Bellissimo, and it was at D. Havens. It was a cool vibe. You could sit down. They had good drinks that nobody else had. It was just a nice environment. And when they moved, and Mark moved it over across the street to outskirts, it still had a lot of the same things. And, obviously that was one of the tragic closures of COVID. And we always liked Purple Feet, the wine, which, was where we are now, the previous wine boutique. And we had zero plans to do anything. And the Allen County Whiskey Society has its meetings. It had its meetings at Purple Feet. Now they have them at Sidecar. And Elisa, who was the former owner, McFerrin, and her husband, Lee, were there. And after the meeting, he said, hey, hang around for a second. I was hung around, and he's like, do you guys want to buy this place? I said, no, we're buying out-of-state tuition for 2 kids. Absolutely not. No. He's like, okay, because we're probably going to sell it. We have jobs. And I said, okay. But the place had the same vibe. It's a place you could go and kind of hang out, and it was quiet. And so my wife and I talked about it. And I even tried to I know you had Joe Knott on a couple weeks ago. Joe's my neighbor. I tried to snare him on it too. Joe and I collectively have like an obnoxious bourbon supply. Obnoxious. So I was like, come on, we should do this. Why not? He's got a lot of stuff with his dealership. So, but my wife was into it, and our kids now, this is our first year as empty nesters. So she's like, why not? Why not? And then we just talked ourselves into it, and it's been fantastic.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys haven't gone to the Sidecar, you got to go check it out. At least, even if you're not a bourbon drinker or anything, I mean, the atmosphere alone, it's absolutely gorgeous.
I was
mean,
kicking myself for not bringing some whiskey this morning. I was
Really?
halfway here. I'm like, why didn't I make everybody drink?
That's awesome. But no, okay. So I guess what's kind of the future for you guys? Do you have any big plans, aspirations, goals?
So it's been exactly 6 months since we've been open. We've done as you've seen, we've done some major renovations. And I think we've spent that 6 months trying to establish our lane. We don't want to have mission creep. We don't want to go be everything to everyone. And we've been pretty deliberate about saying, we're okay not being the thing. Like, come here before the thing. Come here after the thing. Come here for happy hour. Come after the symphony. Come before dinner, whatever. That's our lane. And I don't want people to be crowded. I don't want it to be too loud. I don't want people to wait forever. I want it to be that same relaxing vibe where you can actually talk to people and hang out and get quality drinks. So I think getting the right staff is something we've done. Figuring out our lane and sticking with it is something we're going to continue to do. We will do, we'll expand more. We want to do some like craft cocktail classes for people. I've had a lot of people be interested in that. I don't want to do food at all, but it turns out you have to if you sling drinks. So we'll continue to find like creative and unique foods to do that are small and easy, and in no way a dinner option.
Do you have any ideas?
I have a lot of ideas.
Anything you want to share?
Why are you starting a bar?
No.
I don't want to share any ideas just because
Okay.
I know what we're gonna do, and
No
that's
worries.
not my wheelhouse. That's the other one's wheelhouse.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No, but it's not. It's nothing crazy. Like, we're going to continue with like unique charcuterie boards and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be nothing too big.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
Where does that love of bourbon and of whiskey come from? Like, is it just
An
your
alcoholic father. I'm just kidding. I'm half kidding, maybe. I don't know. I think I've always been into food and drink, always. And I think the whole world kind of lit on fire with bourbon during COVID. Certainly, me too. And I think, the older you get, guys in particular have a bad time having hobbies. I probably have too many, frankly. But I think having things to keep your brain occupied. This is one of my major issues with Lima when I first moved here. Is like I didn't feel like there was enough to do. And I'm like, okay, look, I've never been hunting. I'm gonna learn how to hunt. I've never been doing whatever. I got to learn how to do all these things. I'm going to learn how to go walleye fish, because I recognize that there are a lot of guys that just sit in their garage and drink, and look, I'm good with that once in a while for sure. But like I need stuff to do, and I think bourbon is this vast world of that. It's never ending learning. And here's another thing I think we're going to move into this year. I know we're going to move into is other liquors too. Like I got a lot I want to learn about tequila. And I want to bring that here. I think we're going to, this year, right this week, we're going to start rolling out flights of whiskey. But I want to design them so they're helpful for people to learn. So I want to do a flight of like a small batch versus single barrel of the same whiskey or the same two whiskeys. I want to do bourbons versus rye. I want to do a proof ladder where you start with something like Basil Hayden that's 80 proof and you end with something like Nashville Barrel that's 120. So you can understand, what proof adds to it, or take something like Buffalo Trace that's basically the same recipe. Buffalo Trace is their flagship. Then they age it becomes Eagle Rare. Then they bottle it single barrel. Then it becomes Blanton's and so forth. But they all taste different. It's the same recipe. So just how the grains and the aging process, I want to be kind of professorial about it.
Yeah.
And we're all learning about it together too.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Well,
I have a question. This is just more me being curious. So you said that you're paying for 2 out-of-state tuitions for your daughters. Where are they going?
Alabama.
Both of them?
Both of them.
What are they studying?
Who knows? They'll probably tell me at some point.
Eventually. Once they figure it out, maybe the last year.
My oldest one, so one's a sophomore. One's a sophomore, one's a freshman. At the current time, the sophomore is public policy, and the freshman is psychology. And they're doing great. We have no connection to Alabama whatsoever. None. My oldest one just always she just kind of does things at her own pace, in her own way. And I was really antsy her senior year, about schools. And I'm like, hey, what are you going to do? Like, what we need to make some decisions here. And she had applied some places and she wasn't really telling us anything. So it was probably April, her senior year. And I was just frustrated. We were down at Shawnee Station. I'm like, what are you going to do? She goes, I think I'm going to go to Alabama. We'd never even said the words in our house. I'm like, well, maybe you should have applied there. She goes, I got accepted there in January. I'm like, okay. So that ended up being what she did. And then I said, okay, we got to get in front of this with the younger one. So that summer, I took her on tours. We went to Colorado. She and I went to UCLA, we did all the Ohio schools. And she was just the same way, just dragging her heels on everything. And my wife said to me, she's like, you need to talk to her. She's afraid you're going to be mad at her. I go, what are you talking about? She thinks she wants you want her to go to Colorado. I go, I don't care where she goes. So I took her to lunch. And I was like, hey, so what are you thinking here? And she goes, well, what would you say if I said I wanted to go to Alabama too? And I said, well, I'll tell you what I would think. And then I'll tell you what I would say. What I would think is, can one of them get in-state tuition? Please, in-state tuition. That's what I would think. But what I would say is, tell me about it. Like, why do you want to go to Alabama? And so we talked. I said, you feel the only wrong answer is not doing something you feel great about. That's the only wrong answer. She was like, I feel great about it. Okay, well, close the book. Let's go. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any advice on raising kids?
Oh, yeah. The best advice that I've since added to, my aunt gave it to me when my kids were like 3-ish and 4. They're only 15 months apart. But she said, you need to realize you don't raise teenagers when they're teenagers. You raise them now. And it's the best advice anybody ever gave me about how you talk to them, how do you talk around them, how do you just everything. You don't all of a sudden get into those teenage years and think that you're doing a whole lot of character forming. It starts early. I've since realized you don't raise young adults that are 19 or 20 when they're 19 or 20. You raise them their whole life. So I think, I don't mean to brag, but I feel really good about we created good humans. You see, these kids care about people, and when they were in elementary school, I had a friend who shall remain nameless, but he said, hey, how's Lily doing in rocket math? And I go, it's rocket math. And he goes, rocket math. That's where they get a minute and they do all their multiplication. I'm like, I don't know. He goes, do you know what letter she's on? No, I have no idea. He goes, okay. Well, you might want to ask. I go, why? If there's a problem, I think the teacher will tell me. I said, let me tell you what I do. When we get the report cards, I turn it over because on the back is where conduct is. And I want to know if my kid is helping the new kid, if my kid is listening to the teacher, if they're doing what they're told. Because if she's not good at rocket math, we can get a tutor. These are character issues. And if she's not doing these things, that's on me. So I don't know about rocket math. I don't care. Teacher will tell me if she needs help with rocket math.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So you've been married a long time too.
Yeah.
What's some
21 years.
What's some good marriage advice?
Yeah, I didn't know you were coming hard hitting here. The reason my wife and I got together, finally, we were friends for 5 years. And then all of a sudden we were both single and the timing worked and everything. We talk all the time. And probably she would say we talk too much. But I think we're friends. I've seen this. This is a pitfall I've seen with a lot of my guy friends. Probably less now that I'm around people that have been married for a long time too. But there's this insistence with some guys that they have to have guy time and they have to have boys' night out and they have to go on guy trips and everything. It sounds short. It sounds great. It sounds unappealing to me, right? And so my wife is a part of everything I do. Every social circle I'm in, we're a unit, and I think that is critical for everybody. Right? We're a unit in her circles too. We're just come as a package deal. I think when you end up having these kind of splintered things, it's never good for the foundation of the relationship. People used to ask all this because a lot of my friends were single for a long time, and we would go on these trips. It's like, how does your wife let you go on these trips with these single guys? Because my wife is friends with them, and she knows damn well if I got out of line, they're grabbing me. What are you doing? Because they're part of our unit too. They're part of our family.
That's amazing advice. Absolutely love that. All right,
I like being married. It's probably the best decision I ever made. And it drives me nuts when I hear guys like, oh, the old ball and chain or them out. I'm like, stop it. Just stop.
I agree.
Yeah.
Best decision I ever made as well. Well, let's transition into kind of one of our final segments. It's our quick fire question segment.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask
should
you
have done
some
more
questions.
research.
No, you're good. I'm just going to ask you some questions and you just answer as fast as
Free
possible.
association.
Kind of.
We should have done a Rorschach. You could have just shown me ink blots.
We should do that on an episode. That'd be fun.
But make your own.
next
Make
time.
your own Rorschach.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Next time. All right. So first question is tea or coffee to start the day?
Coffee.
How many cups?
All day.
All day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has this been kind of your whole career or just now?
No, forever.
Forever.
It's probably not healthy.
That's awesome. All right. What is your favorite local business besides your own?
I would say I have seasons for that right now. So I'm going to answer that at a point in time right now. Milano's.
Awesome.
I like Milano's because I feel like I like Frank. I like that. You know how like during the craft beer renaissance, you had a few old school ones like Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada, that were able to like keep up with everyone. I feel like as Lima's going through this great renaissance, like Frank has stayed relevant. I love that restaurant. I'm happy that it's still there. I go in there all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's delicious as well.
Yeah.
All right. What is one word to describe entrepreneurship?
Risk.
Why risk?
Because I know a lot of people who have fantastic ideas and they just don't do it. And they talk themselves out of it. They're, people have the money to do it. What if it doesn't work? Well, if I go back in my life, everything I've ever done, like it's a risk to move to LA when you've never lived there, when you've never been there before, right? It's a risk to move to New Mexico to work somewhere. It's a risk to move to Ohio when you've never been there before too. Everything I've taken a risk on has led to everything good in my life. And I think even if you make decisions and it ends up being the wrong choice, you have now narrowed down. You've eliminated one wrong choice, so you have other things. So I think and this is why I try and instill in my kids too. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Yeah, that's awesome. What is the biggest business myth?
Oh, the biggest business myth? I don't even know what a business myth is.
I don't know.
Give me an example.
Some people have said like, this is easy. You know what you're doing, or exactly what you set out to do. That's exactly what you're going to do, and it's not going to change. Some people like, you can clock out. We've had some entrepreneurs say that, like, you don't clock out.
Yeah, I've never had a clock out job, so I can't relate with that. I would say for having a bar now that is very much like the people industry, the peopling doesn't stop when you're closed. The peopling is like in your bloodstream now, and you have to people with other businesses, and you have to people with your staff, and you have to people with your spouse, and people. It's not just peopling with customers. So when I thought about, we're like, I want everybody has a superpower. You're gonna be the face of this place and the personality. It's not just customers; it's everything.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I guess is there in closing, is there one last piece of advice or maybe quote that you've kind of stuck to and held on to for most of your life?
So if you go to the Met, there are 2 tables that have quotes written into them. So Reuben Gibson, who made the furniture for the Met and built the bar and everything, he had this vision when he did it, that he was going to collect quotes from people around Lima and write them on there and then, cover them up so they'll be there forever. And you could just read all these quotes. You should look for those tables. And he came to me for one, and I gave him one that my dad had given to me. And it was, you got to dance with the girl that brung you, which is basically like you find something that works. You find things that are loyal and that, you stick with them. You stick with things that work.
That's amazing.
Dance with the girl that brung you.
I like that a lot. I haven't heard that one. I got to find that table.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we go, is there any questions you have for us, Bubba?
Yeah, I want to know about this dog.
You want to know about this dog?
Yeah.
So Dudley, he's the second Dudley.
I know this because I looked on the site and I read the story.
Yep.
And I have a lot of questions about this. Was there any kind of conflict within about giving him the same name?
No. So, I mean, it's Doug, the owner. It's his dog. Doug and
He's
Sue.
not here.
Yeah. Yeah, he's
So
not
we were-
here. So I will answer as best I can.
Yeah.
But no, Dudley was their pride and joy. I mean, he's part of the family. And then when Doug first decided to put him on TV a while ago, he kind of became the symbol of Thermal Gard. A lot of people, they don't know Thermal Gard Window and Door, but they know Dudley. And like if you Google like dog window company or window company with a dog, were like the first 8 results or whatever. And so, Dudley is always the way it was. And so when the first Dudley died, actually, Doug said he wasn't going to get another one. They lasted 2 days, and then they found another Westie, and so they went and got Dudley number 2, and the name is just Dudley. So that's what it was.
Here's my issue. I have 2 issues. One, I think, by giving Dudley 2 the same name, basically, he's going to be his own dog. And he might not be everything Dudley 1 was. So are we setting him up with a bar that's too high for him? We don't know. He's a young dog. Was he 3 now? 3 or 4?
Yeah, he's grown out of the puppy stages, though, now. He's way easier
But we
to
built
shoot
him
with
into
now.
a box. He has to live in the Dudley box. And I don't know if that was fair for him.
No. Trust me, he's living his best life.
All right,
I guarantee
let's
you.
move to the legacy of Dudley 1 then.
Okay.
It's not like when iPhone 17 comes out, they go, well, this one is the same or worse than iPhone 16. They say it's better. So by having Dudley 2.0, aren't you telling Dudley 1.0 he wasn't good enough and that this one's better? You didn't even know Dudley 2.0 if he was going to be better. But I think it cheapens the legacy of Dudley 1. It should have been just another Dudley.
I don't think so. I think it builds and it adds.
No.
I think so.
Does someone new picking up the mantle of Superman in a movie, does that degrade the legacy of a previous Superman actor?
I would say no.
I think those are nonsense. I think no, I don't even think they're the same.
Well, I mean, maybe we'll have to put a poll out.
If God threw a thunderbolt down at me right now, hit the deck, and my wife's like, hey, I found Bubba 2.0. What does that say about me?
I think that's awesome. I mean, I think if she says, is Bubba 2.0, I mean, I just think it's great. I think what a legacy you left.
I think
and
you're
it was
biased.
a positive
I think
memory.
you're biased because it's your boss's dog.
Maybe. I don't know. I like Dudley a lot, though. We get along.
We have 3 dogs. I love dogs.
Do you? What
You know,
kind of
dogs are, I feel like you don't have to have a dog, but if you don't like dogs, I don't trust you. I put you right in that same group with people who back their cars in all the time, people who are religious zealots. I have a whole list of people I don't trust, but if you don't like dogs, you're on top of it.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I will say I've worked with animals on different sets throughout my career. Dudley is the best on-set animal I've ever worked with.
That's awesome.
He is a good actor, genuinely.
Yeah. As a puppy, it was rough.
I believe
but,
it, but
puppies are
now
always
he's mellowed out, and yeah, great dog.
My daughter showed up with her dog because she lives in a 3rd floor apartment with no elevator and she needs a dog at college.
Well, sure.
Obviously.
Yeah,
It's a great dog.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Bubba.
I have
all right.
more
All right.
questions.
All right.
Why does Thermal Gard have a podcast?
So that we can have people on like you. We can hear your story, get to know you more.
Nobody cares about me. Why does Thermal Gard have a podcast?
See, I disagree, Bubba. Full transparency, they're going to hear it now. We don't know each other. This is literally the first time we've met. You walking in the room. We've texted, but we don't know each other. And I'm overjoyed that I know you now. And I would consider you a friend now. We still don't know each other very well,
You don't look overjoyed.
but I like you a lot.
It might be your normal.
Honestly, Bubba, where that comes from is 3 years of working on the mental health block. It takes a lot to get me up or down. You got to stay even keeled.
We started with mental health. We're ending with mental health.
It's
a great
part of who
circle.
I am. No, I am. I'm really happy I got to know you.
I am too. This is super fun.
Yeah.
Like meet all of you guys.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
it
why
was
we have a
awesome.
podcast. And honestly, it gives us an excuse to meet successful, awesome people like yourself. They love to hear their story. I think people's stories are fascinating.
I do too.
And it's the kind of content that I enjoy and a lot of other people enjoy. And I actually, before we started our podcast, I tried to get other people to do this. And they, for whatever reason, wouldn't, kept dragging their feet. And I was like, you know what? If nobody else is going to do this in Lima, I'm going to do it. So
Yeah.
that's why we started it.
It's great. You made me think of something I always tell my daughters too. Is like it is way more valuable to be an interested person than to be an interesting person. Because if you're an interested person, you're already interesting. You know, and I love hearing everybody's stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
People come on here and tell their story.
Well, good. I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
Sure.
It means a lot. So that being said, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Thermal Gard Podcast. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment, share it with a friend, all the good stuff. And Bubba, we will have all of your stuff in the descriptions. We'll tag you guys and all of that.
Cool.
So again, thanks for coming on, and we'll see you all in the next one.
See ya.
Awesome.